Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Aaron Hilliard, your favorite fungal mushroom forager here on YouTube. Hopefully, I'm your favorite. Hopefully, you're a subscriber. But it is summertime. Right now, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and it is the middle of the crunchy, dry summer. And people think that it rains all the time here in Washington. It does for a lot of the months, but in the summer, we get like 0 rain. So it's a lame time for mushroom foragers. But my job here on this channel is to make videos all about wild mushrooms and what I'm finding out here. And I delve into other areas of mycology, which is the study of mushrooms. I teach mycology courses at the Olympic College in Bremerton. I'm the vice president of the Kitsap Peninsula Mycological Society. I'm the creator of Mushroom Wonderland. And I just love mushrooms. I've always loved mushrooms. My grandma got me into them as a kid. And so I always find myself in the woods inspecting mushrooms, trying to learn what they are, learn their identification, learn their features. Are they edible or not? Maybe they're poisonous. I just think they're so fascinating and magical. So that's what I do on this channel. And in the fall and in the spring, usually my videos are very packed with all kinds of different mushrooms that I'm finding just one after the next. But right now in the summer, the mushrooms are kind of far and few between. The fungi is definitely still here underground, but the fruiting bodies, which are the sexual reproductive organ of the fungus, are kind of hard to find because it's dry. And the fungus isn't going to produce fruiting bodies that are just going to get destroyed by the heat and the sun. So in certain niches and certain little microhabitats here in the PNW, it's still lush enough, and some of these fungus will be putting fruiting bodies off. And this video is going to be kind of a conglomeration of the walk that I'm taking right now, and then the mushrooms that I have found over the past week that I have taken photographs of and observed on iNaturalist in my area.
Welcome to Mushroom Wonderland.
So one of the coolest ones that I found is Pluteus. So this is a pink spored saprotroph, an edible mushroom that grows on wood, although it's not typically eaten. And these ones that I found are actually really rare. You know, they wouldn't even be reasonable to eat. They're like an inch across, maybe an inch and a half. I just found these 2 little fruiting bodies growing out of an old red alder log that was laying on the ground. So let's take a look at that clip.
So I actually found a couple of mushrooms in the summertime, which I'm pretty stoked about. It's just 2 of these whitish colored mushrooms coming out of a crack in the bark. And right now in the summer, there's just like barely any mushrooms growing out here. So I get excited when I see any mushrooms, especially that have a cap and a stem. So really, really cool. And I believe these are in the genus Pluteus or Pluteus. So let's take a closer look at these mushrooms that are growing out here in August in Washington State. So the only way I can truly identify a mushroom is to see the gills and everything, and that usually requires the harvest of at least 1 fruiting body, which I'm going to get as far in there as I can, get it from the stem, and flip it over. This is a very delicate white-gilled mushroom. The gills are not attached to the stipe, and just those 2 features and the fact that it's growing on wood lets me know that this is in the genus Pluteus or Pluteus. A relative of the deer mushroom, but these are petite. They're small and fragile and white, very kind of scaly and fibrous on top of the cap. A Pluteus that I'm not really familiar with, but most of these are edible, although not super desirable. But wow, it's a loud bird. But yeah, these are really beautiful, and I'm going to upload these onto iNaturalist, take some really nice photos and stuff, and document the occurrence of this particular Pluteus in this area. It's nice if you can set up the mushrooms in a way that you can get a picture of all the features in one photo, kind of like this, and then I'll set my camera up nice. And you can even take the photo with the cell phone. I would suggest learning how to adjust the exposure, so just tap on the part you want it to focus on. And then there'll be a slider with a little sunshine, and usually if you turn that down, it's going to bring more clarity into your photos.
So these Pluteus came out to be Pluteus leucoborealis. So rarely observed species here in the Pacific Northwest. It's got a tomentose or a scaly kind of fuzzy top of the cap, and they're pretty minute for Pluteus and or Pluteus, however you want to call it. I've always called it kind of Pluteus, but I've heard some people call it Pluteus, and that kind of sticks with me sometimes. But anyways, not desired for edibility, but it was interesting to look this one up. I posted it on Facebook on an identification forum to see if I could get it down to species. And Kendra Dudinsky, one of the administrators, she pointed me towards iNaturalist, where there was some observations of leucoborealis, and this one fits it perfectly. I even did the microscopy, and I looked at the spore size, which matches up just right. It's growing on the right kind of tree, so kind of cool. Only the third observation ever in Washington State that I just found in South Kitsap County over this past week, so that was a neat one. Another one that comes out in the summer, and this is a saprobe. It grows on just decaying leaf matter, Colebiopsis parinata. So this one, the woolly foot, it gets a little bit of fuzz on its foot. I've heard people just call it fuzzy foot, and it's always growing in leaf litter. And you can tell this one, the gills are pretty much the same color as the cap. And they're pretty widely spaced. So that's usually an outstanding characteristic of a mushroom to me, with these big wide spaced gills. Just look really cool to me. Very photogenic. Not really known for edibility. Most sources would just call this one inedible. There's an old paper that says that these contain a type of cyanide. So that would probably put them in the poisonous category, but I guess that same paper talks about them being edible. So people have ground this up, dried it, and ground it into some sort of a condiment. I've never eaten it. If you've eaten Colebiopsis parinata, please put that in the comments so we can know. It's important to science to hear, you know, little observations like this throughout the world. Certain people have definitely tried eating this mushroom. There just isn't really a lot of reports right now on the internet about it. And if you've eaten it, make sure to put that in the comments. But I found these ones growing kind of under a shady area where there's a lot of hazelnut and pine trees and even Douglas fir trees. It's kind of on a hillside, and there was a nice little fruiting of these. So Colebiopsis parinata, or the fuzzy foot, I find these in the late summer, early fall every year, and we're not in early fall yet. We're just in the beginning of August, so we still got a lot of this to go through. And it's like we're in a hot streak right now, so it's been like 90 degrees during the day, which is a little bit much for me. I'm good on all that. You'll find me hiding somewhere air conditioned on those days. But I'm looking forward to the days that the rain returns and fall starts again. That's when we're going to see just tons of mushrooms coming out. This area is really well known for wild mushrooms, as is most of these like northern temperate forests all the way across the west and through the Rockies and eastward towards the eastern seaboard. Big, large fruiting bodies of fungus like to grow in these kind of forests and latitudes. And so in a couple weeks, me and my wife are going to drive to Glacier National Park in Montana for our anniversary. And hopefully I'll see some mushrooms that are growing up there, because it's like high mountain. It's almost emulating like early fall. You know, the Rockies in Telluride, Colorado have a lot of mushrooms, and the Telluride Mushroom Festival is going to be going on really soon. And so if you've ever been up in that area, tons of mushrooms. And so hopefully we find something like that in Montana in the mountains. Looking forward to that for sure. Another interesting mushroom that I came across this week has been the Pisolithus tinctorum, or the Dyers ball, or the dead man's foot, or the dog turd fungi. There's a lot of different common names for this one, and I find these growing in a strip of lawn that is just devoid of nutrients and moisture, but they pop up every year. These are ectomycorrhizals, so they're growing with a tree, and these grow right up on my corner. Let's take a look at that clip right now. I'm out here taking Gunner on a morning stroll. Something catches my eyes down here in the crunchiest part of the summer in August in Washington State. But look at this growing out of the soil right here. This is a fungus. Look at that. This is one of the Dyers mushrooms. So really cool. Pisolithus. And they grow mycorrhizally. This one growing with this big like tulip tree. And I find them along this little scrappy edge of the road right here where there's just like no nutrition, nothing going on. And some people call them the dead man's foot or the dog turd fungus. They grow here every year, so kind of cool. And you can take this back and we'll throw it into a dye bath with some silk and it'll turn it a beautiful color of brown. But you see all these like shrumpy looking stuff, probably Pisolithus causing this, pushing this all up. All right, I want to show you what this Pisolithus looks like when we give it a cross section. Look at that. Now, isn't that just the craziest thing inside there? This is how the spores get produced. Very bizarre speckling. So these are a really amazing mushroom. You wouldn't know that that's all going on just by looking at that clot in the dirt. But yeah, it's a special mushroom. A lot of people search for these everywhere and never find them in their life. So I'm lucky to have found quite a few just growing right here. This time of year, your Pisolithus. Very neat. So I did a little bit of microscopy on this interesting mushroom, the Pisolithus arisus, which actually that species was described from the Italian Riviera. So it's a European taxon, probably not the same mushroom that I'm dealing with here. Pisolithus arenarius is probably closer to what this one is, but it has some really interesting spore formation. So it has these little yellow sacs that actually, when they're young, that's where they're producing their spores. These are a basidiomycete, so they're growing their spores in there, and then when they get to maturity, they kind of turn into this blackish gel and they disintegrate from the top downward into a mass of these cinnamon brown spores that are really pretty round. They have a lot of ornamentation, so they're globose and densely echinate. And so they're an interesting, just really round and small spore, only about 5 to 8 micrometers across. So that's a pretty small spore. So just kind of interesting if you cared about the microscopy of these at all. There's more than meets the eye for sure, on all mushrooms really. Yeah, so what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to dry them, and I have a few other Pisolithus that I've got out of this same spot, and they'll be good to dry and then throw into some simmering water with some fabric, you know, a protein fabric like wool or silk, and it's going to dye it this rich brown color. And so they're really good, and that's why they get a common name, the Dyeball, because people use it for dyeing fabrics and stuff, textiles. So always cool when I come across those, because you normally wouldn't even think this is a mushroom, but as you inspect a little closer, you're like, what the heck? This isn't a rock. This is like a weird puffball type thing, but it never becomes a puffball. And I've seen it have a lot of different macromorphological differences. Sometimes it's got these like pointy hoof-shaped lobes on it, and sometimes it's just a round ball like I found it this time. But when I cut it open, it's got this crazy rainbow effect of the sporulation in that inner core. And so that way I can tell they're the same thing, but it looks almost like there's a couple or a few different varieties that grow in association on the same tree, but I'm pretty sure it's all the same one. Just when it grows, it comes up in a different shape like every time. It's really interesting. So keep your eye out for these weird puffball looking things coming out of the grass. The mushroom dyers love these, and so make sure to collect them and get them home and dry them. There's Loki, our truffle pup. He just loves going full blast out here in the woods, chasing bugs. How you doing, buddy? No time to talk. Gotta go. And there's good old Gun. Oh yeah, he's still out here, spunky with an attitude. For all you gunner lovers, he's doing just fine. Huh, Gun? Oh, buddy. You good? Of course you're good. Dang, as I'm out here just shooting this little video, I come across something growing right down here, a large fleshy mushroom. Man, I'm gonna get this from the base. I definitely, oh, look at that. How cool. This is one of the entalomas. So I did a video recently on how to ID a random mushroom, and this is the one, right? This is the entaloma. subgenus Rhodopolium. Okay, somebody stepped on something pokey. But this one has those pinkish colored gills. That's from the spores. This one, Entoloma rhodopolium. This is a poisonous mushroom that grows around here apparently. I've never seen them before this year. Maybe I just didn't pay much attention. But this one's at full maturity. A lot of spores that it's putting off. And this is one of the larger Entolomas. Very yellow-ish colored with... it's got sort of a metallic look on the cap. It's one way that I can tell it's Entolomiaceae, is this sort of metallic sheen that they get on the cap. But this one growing down in this shady little nook. You know, it's like I was saying, I look for these dark parts of the forest and then I'll find interesting mushrooms like this. Entoloma rhodopolium, the poisonous Entoloma. I can't remember the common name. I'll put that in the description right now on the screen. But yeah, undulating margin, serrated gills. So serrated gills, let me get this down here in the shade and zoom in here. See the serrations on the edge of the gill? Like a steak knife kind of, right? There you go. They're all very ununiform, different sizes, different thicknesses. So it's a handsome big Entoloma, but not one that you want. A lot of GI upset from this. Not a deadly mushroom, but yucky nonetheless. I'm gonna leave that here in the forest. Kind of cool to come across that. Entoloma rhodopolium. Another mushroom that I have found this week that's popping up in irrigated lawns around like urban settings and developed business parks and things like that in the grass is the Milky Cone Cap, or Conocybe apollo. So these are a little pale, small little grass mushroom that are kind of tall, and if you flip them over and look at the gills, they're going to be kind of an orange color, and that is a sign of a Conocybe or a Conocybe. And these mushrooms have relatives that are actually deadly, although these ones are non-toxic and they're not known to hurt anyone. They're super common. I'm finding them all over in Washington State right now and the Pacific Northwest. Wherever there's lush green grass, you're likely to find some of these Conocybe apollo growing right now, this first week of August. And so I have found these growing on my dad's lawn in Minnesota. They look exactly the same. Super common lawn mushroom. Now, if you see a ring associated with these little mushrooms with their orange gills, if there's a really obvious prominent ring on the stipe, that could be a dangerous one. The subgenus Foliotina is one of the Conocybe that can be quite deadly. They contain amatoxins, just like the death cap or the Galerina would. So Conocybe is a little bit of a sinister genus, but these ones aren't harmful, so don't worry about your dogs or your kids in the yard because they're everywhere. But you know, always take caution. If you think your kid is into ingesting random wild mushrooms, or your dog, then I would you know, maybe go ahead and pluck these ones out and throw them in the trash can or something. But these ones in particular, you don't got to worry about these. So this week I was also super stoked to be finding lobster mushrooms. They're out here, they're growing in this wild blackberry and sword fern, and sometimes you'll just be walking along the path and you'll come across fragments of like bright orange mushroom material laying on the side of the trail, and squirrels love these mushrooms. They also love russulas. And so I was walking down a trail just a few days ago, and I started filming when I came across some of these little fragments that were by a squirrel, and I discovered a nice lobster mushroom. So let's take a look at that. So right down here on the ground, I see this along the way. You see these chunks? This is of the lobster mushroom, Hypomyces lactiflorum. There it is, and you can see that. This is a parasite. It's a fungi growing on another fungi, so it's turning the host mushroom bright orange, and I'm seeing chunks of it here where a squirrel or some animal has picked it, most likely a squirrel. I see squirrels picking these. Here's an old dried out, a different russula, but I see chunks
of it here, and I've seen other little signs of lobster mushrooms on this trail. I just totally came out here for a nice nature walk, and this is an area that I've never been in before, but I start to notice that I think it looks good for lobster mushroom habitat because all of this wild blackberry, these sword ferns, and you know, this brush, this kind of area looks good to me. Lobster mushrooms are mycorrhizal, so they're growing in association with evergreen trees here, and the roots of the trees can extend quite a ways in under the ground, and then the fungi is just really growing on the very tips of those roots, so it can appear to be quite a ways from the actual tree itself. One of the ways that I find new patches of mushrooms is just simply to look for like county parks and local parks and just go for walks, you know. And a lot of times I come up with nothing, but sometimes I get a little feeling, and sometimes I'll see a flag that's like a mushroom that's standing out. But you know, this is how you discover new patches, and I spend a lot of time walking in areas where I don't find mushrooms. Those don't make for that great of videos, so it seems like I'm always getting lucky and finding mushrooms everywhere, but really it's because I've spent a lot of time, you know, walked a lot of miles on these trails, just keeping a sharp eye out, looking for anything unusual, any strange colors. And this time of year, the lobster mushroom, bright orange. So it really kind of stands out. So I've also picked a lot of lobster mushrooms, and I just feel like this is good habitat. So this is a place where I'm slowing down. I'm looking closer as I'm going down the trail. So this kind of place, obviously a very busy public place, and people walk their dogs out here a lot, and the dogs pee all over the side of the trail. So keep that in mind if you find trailside mushrooms, that it might have been peed on by a dog. So I don't know, dogs seem to take aim at that kind of, whoa, check this out. Dogs take aim at that kind of stuff. Look at this. There she is. Oh man, and it's all gnawed on by something, probably a squirrel. Look at that big lobster mushroom. Hypomyces lactiflorum. So even here in the summertime and the crunchy, dry heat, these mushrooms are finding a way to grow. How cool. And these are also a really good Dyers mushroom. Yeah, something's been really snacking on this. Some animal found it. And if I look right here, it looks like, yep, it's that's where it came out of. You can see all the spores right there. Ton of sporulation from that one. So very cool. Big, obvious one. This is what I'd call a flag. This is a mushroom that catches your eye, gets your attention. And look at that. No doubt. That is definitely some kind of an animal, probably a squirrel munching on this thing. It thinks it's tasty. It appears to just be eating the rind of it. You know what I mean? Just the Hypomyces. So underneath the red, the orangish red color is the host, which is a Russell abrevipes, not a super desired or tasty mushroom. It's kind of bland and boring. David Aurora calls it probably the most boring mushroom in the forest, I think, in Mushrooms Demystified. But this, when it gets parasitized by Hypomyces lactiflorum, one of the parasitic fungi that attacks other mushrooms, turns it this bright orange color, contorts the gills, and look at that. Crazy. And so you could just peel this thing, use the peels for dye, and then eat the inside. But like, I don't know, does the flavor profile change throughout the entire mushroom because of the parasite? Or is it a placebo effect? Are we eating it with our eyes? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of questions. There's been blind taste tests where people prefer just the regular brevipes over the infected lobster mushroom when blindfolded. But this sure is pretty. They do smell a little bit fishy. But, you know, the wild animals out here can smell them way better than we can. So I have a little mesh bag in my backpack. I'm going to throw this in there. I hear people coming down the trail, so I kind of like to keep places like this a little bit secret when I discover a new lobster patch. So let me put this one away real quick. So I got this mesh foraging bag, and but I'm going to keep it in my backpack just to be discreet, you know. When you find a killer spot, you don't want everybody else picking it. Kind of like one of the first rules in mushrooming. Keep your patch to yourself.
Yeah, so I love these lobster mushrooms, even if they're not good for eating. If something else has been nibbling on it really hard, you know, we could share. I could cut that part away, but I'll probably just dry this one, use it for dye later in the future. So I'm just drying them, putting them in a bag, saving them for later. So lobster mushrooms, though, excellent edible mushrooms, also a great dye mushroom, and they're out here in the summertime. Despite it being dry, they're an ectomycorrhizal species, so they're deriving some moisture out of these trees, as well as sugars in the form, you know, of fats and carbohydrates out of these trees, and they're in turn feeding these tree roots some kind of minerals and food that would be otherwise unavailable to the trees. So lobster mushrooms doing a great job out here also, and these mushrooms are also really favored by humans. So keep your eyes open for this bright orange color, because the lobster mushrooms are popping out, and they're fun to find, they're easy to spot, and once you get a feel for that habitat, you just kind of know when you're in a lobster area to slow down and start looking closer. But love finding some lobsters in the summertime. Get out there, find your lobster mushrooms for sure. Right here in the same little nook that I just found that entaloma, I'm looking down, and again, I'm going to gently kind of excavate this. Let's see. There we go. This one is your chanterelle, summer chanterelle. This one, Cantharellus formosus. These gills can be a little deceiving. Someone might think it's a rainbow chanterelle. Those are uncommon to just like straight up rare in this particular area. So I do not ever expect to see those. But because it's the same color, the gills are the same color as the cap, this one just Cantharellus formosus, or the Pacific beautiful golden chanterelle. And a lot of people love eating these, a mycorrhizal species that grows here. Oh, look at, there was its friend, and it's moldy. So a lot of times these will try to grow, and then they just kind of abort like this before they can get to maturity. So this is a pretty little one, and if you got your eyes open, you can still find these little butter sponges growing in the woods. Kind of a sherbet, dry colored cap. But yeah, these mycorrhizal growing with the trees. And whoops. And so I'll collect it, and I just dry them. I throw them into a bag of a mushroom medley, and yeah, really good. Personally, I don't eat these. They give me terrible GI upset immediately. Basically allergic to them. This dog's gone full crazy. He's got the zoomies right now. Bro, easy, dude. You're gonna get hurt. Loki, relax. Loki, hey, Mr. Tongue Boy. Oh my gosh. You're too much, bro. Chill out. You guys are good boys, but they're not the greatest mushroom hunters, these two. They like to step on mushrooms, pounce on them, pee on them. They got no respect for video making, but they enjoy the woods just like I do. All right, so I thought I'd check this one spot where I know chanterelles often grow in the fall, and something caught my eye, and it's hidden away down in here, but let's see if we can pull it out of here. Look at that, growing right at the base of this black huckleberry, a decent chanterelle. Look at that. So right at the base of this evergreen huckleberry and salal, beautiful chanterelle. Wow, look at that. That's probably the biggest one I found this year. So they're pretty small in the summer, definitely affected by the amount of moisture, although they can grow with these trees because of the mycorrhizal association. They're often not very big in the summer because they just don't get a lot of rain. But yeah, if you got a sharp eye and you look close, you can find chanterelles. But right here, look at that beautiful golden chanterelle found out in the woods right now in early August. That's a big one. So you know, if you like chanterelles, this is perfect for you. I take these home and I put them in the dehydrator, and I know a lot of people are like, don't dehydrate chanterelles, it doesn't work. It does work. They do dehydrate and they can rehydrate. Yeah, it's beautiful. It kind of has a bit of a apricot or a sweet kind of smell. I don't know if the apricot thing is like a color association trick, but they do smell sweet and kind of floral, and they're beautiful, you know. Cantharellus meaning a drinking cup, and formosus meaning beautiful. So the beautiful little drinking cup. Yummy. Oh, I've got a bellyache because I can't eat them. So anyways, golden chanterelles are out.
And thank you for joining me on this little update of summer mushrooms going on out here. I'm struggling to find mushrooms, but I'm still finding them here and there. And that's why I got to kind of piece together all these clips that I found over the last week of mushrooms. And I stay engaged, continue to upload and learn about them. And it's easier to slow down in the summer. If you find a mushroom, you can really start to inspect it and learn everything there is to learn about it. It's a great way to learn mushroom ID, taxonomy, and all of that kind of good stuff. So thanks for joining. Make sure to hit subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Much love, everyone. Peace out.